I call these interviews, but really they're more like testimonials. Essentially, each person has an open mic for up to 3 minutes to share their thoughts on Tolkien. It's not a Q&A format. It's sort of like you just talk. I have proposed the 3 general questions to have in mind while speaking. And again, if you could start with name, age, where you're from, and then just launch into what you'd like to share. So, okay, go ahead whenever you're ready.
I've always hesitated to call myself a Tolkien scholar. I usually describe myself more as a Tolkien enabler, but the good kind of enabler, because enabling people to do research and to do work in Tolkien, whether the more traditional academic work with the manuscripts or with studying the fandom. I'm manuscripts archivist, so I'm responsible for over 100 collections. Tolkien is certainly the biggest fish in the pond, and it's the collection that could most easily take up one's entire life if you let it. The heart of the collection here at Marquette are the manuscripts that we acquired directly from Professor Tolkien in the 1950s, and that his son Christopher later added to in the 80s and 90s. And the reason it's here is because of the vision of a man named William Reedy, who was hired by Marquette in 1956 to be director of its brand new library that it had built. And he was familiar with Tolkien's work, so he was an early reader of The Lord of the Rings. He instantly recognized it as a work of genius and exactly the kind of manuscripts he would love to have in his new library. That became the nucleus for a larger collection. And I think it sort of developed organically, where we began to sort of document the fandom also that's gone along with Tolkien. And when I became curator, one of the questions on my mind was, how do we document the fandom in an age of the internet where, and in the post-Jackson era, where there's just this explosion of fan content. And so the Oral History Project was an idea that I came up with to address how we might document the fandom in a way that's doable. We're kind of a pilgrimage site for Tolkien fans from around the world who may find themselves in Milwaukee for one reason or another, and then they want to stop by and make some kind of connection with the collection. And I remember there was a Friday afternoon where there were some fans from overseas that were in town, and I remember talking to them, and then they immediately launched into sharing about when they first encountered him and what Tolkien's meant to them in their lives. And the thought occurred to me at that point, like, if I'm going to document the fandom, this is exactly the kind of thing that I should be collecting and capturing, these moments. And so the Fandom Oral History Project is in a way to recreate that kind of moment where fans can share what Tolkien's meant to them, why they like him, when they first encountered him.
I'm the youngest of 3 kids, and my brother was the first to get into it. And he started reading all the books, and I wasn't as much of a book nerd at the time. I wanted to do all sorts of other things like playing a creek. But it turns out that it tied a lot into my love of nature. So I started with The Hobbit.
One of the first things I latched onto was this motif of building a great host of fans, or having a muster of fans here at Marquette. And that idea led me to latch on to 6,000 as the number of fans that I wanted in the collection, because that's the number of riders of Rohan that Theoden leads to Minas Tirith to raise the siege. And so I wanted to have one fan for each rider of Rohan in the host. And in hindsight, I sometimes think that I made that decision more with my heart than with my head, because if I had been using my head, I would have said, Bill, scale back. Don't be that grandiose. But at the time, it seemed like, yes, 6,000 interviews, and I'm still holding to that, and still hope that one day I can reach that goal. I wanted these to be brief from the outset, and so I decided on 3 minutes as the time limit, because it would allow me to collect the 6,000, but also because it compels people to be succinct and to really go through and distill down to what is most important to them about Tolkien.
I came to Tolkien pretty late. I think even when I was a kid, when the films came out and everybody was watching them and telling me that I should watch them, I stubbornly refused because I was a contrarian who didn't want to do anything that was popular. Now that I'm researching, I'm at the University of Chicago, and I research sort of fictional world building methods. And in that space, you can't talk about world building without talking about Tolkien, right? Like his approach to world building, the like degree to which he was methodical and meticulous and curious and invested in his fictional world is like an example, like a kind of example of world building that everybody follows, right? And even as my methods aren't as meticulous as him, and maybe I'm significantly messier than him in some of the kinds of worlds that I build and the sort of levels to which they're consistent, I think about him a lot.
I have noted themes or patterns that emerge out of the interviews. And many of the fans are very honest about their upbringings and their experiences in life. And a lot of people have suffered and gone through a lot of difficult things. And a common theme is the importance of Tolkien and helping them to get through tragedies. And they look to Tolkien for wisdom, for guidance to his characters, who, for many of them, many people, the characters in the story become so familiar to them that they're like their friends.
I'm all of 5'0" nothing, so I related a lot to the hobbits. And we grew up in Kentucky, where that way of life was very still and calm and structured, and things were supposed to be the way that they were. But I also felt like I kind of stuck out like a sore thumb, like things were different, and I wasn't exactly like the way that everyone else was around in society. So yeah, I mean, big time. Felt like Bilbo, that, hey, adventure's right around the corner. You just have to run out the door and feel inspired by yourself. So I did. I ran out the door, and I face first into the wind of adventure and never looked back.
I think one of the most overriding patterns or themes in the story is the sense of community, but it's been sort of a gateway to greater relationships in their lives, meeting other people who feel the same way. For a lot of people, there's this moment in their life where they've maybe liked Tolkien, and then they encounter somebody who also likes them, and they think, oh wow, I thought I was the only one who liked him. And then they realize, oh, there's a whole community.
So I think I was about 9 or 10 when I had The Lord of the Rings read to me.
A high school classmate of mine lent me his paperback copies of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings because he thought I would like them.
I think the story is for my mom. She read it during an illness in the hospital, and she never forgot it.
Tolkien has meant for me family and fellowship.
Tolkien's sense of showing friendship, that was really powerful for me.
It really helped me develop myself, who I am, what's important to me.
Yeah, this project is really important to me, and I think it's important to Tolkien studies and to Tolkien fandom. It provides an opportunity for the fans to share their thoughts and have those preserved forever, to be part of this great host of fans, this great muster of fans brought together, which these recordings will be here at Marquette, forever. They'll be right alongside the manuscripts from this author whom everybody loves. It's been poignant for me because there have been contributors who have passed away since doing their interviews. There was a dear friend, Tolkien scholar, Richard West, who passed away from COVID, and he did his interview. And so the fact his voice is preserved there in the collection, even though he's gone, taken far too soon, I think that's wonderful. His voice is there.
It was extremely well written. It was a rattling good story. It was full of all of these archetypes.
I think it's really important that these voices be preserved and be available for future generations, even generations within families, if they want to hear what great grandma thought about Tolkien. The voice is preserved and it's there, and they can kind of connect with her at that point in her life. In one case, I remember the fan joking that she first encountered Tolkien when she was in her mother's womb, because her mother would read The Hobbit to her while she was in utero. And so there are people connecting with him through family members, and it seems to pass on from generation to generation. There's an evergreen quality to Tolkien, and I think that will continue. I think that in each generation moving forward, there will be a fandom.